But before we get into that, just want to again wish you all a very happy Hanukkah and to let you know that you're very lucky tonight because you're doing exactly what you should be doing. Meaning tonight is called Zois Hanukkah, and that we learn mysticism on Sunday nights according to Kabbalah, according to mysticism. Tonight is actually the holiest night of Hanukkah. That's why I've tried to get the menorah. Can you see my menorah behind me, everybody? So I tried to get you to try and look at the lights. So I'll try and move a little bit so you can see the lights. Nice to see you, Sandra, in Turkey. What's up? Welcome. Happy Hanukkah. Here's the idea. Most people make a big mistake. They think the first night of Hanukkah, that's kind of, whoa, first night, amazing, getting the hidden light, getting the hidden donuts, awesome. And people get very excited about the first night of Hanukkah. But in mysticism, actually, it's the last night of Hanukkah, which is by far 8 times the power. And lights 8 times the power is obviously obvious that every night it's a cumulative. So tonight we have 8 hours such of the hidden light being projected to the world. As we learned last week, that when Hashem made the world, he created the spiritual beautiful light, which he gave to Adam and Eve for 12 hours in the Garden of Eden on Friday and on Shabbos, which lasted 36 hours. Then when Shabbos went out, he took the light away and hid the light. And the mystics tell us on Hanukkah, those 36 candles we light will all access those 36 hours of hidden light from the Garden of Eden. So tonight we're getting 8 of them, 8 of them. And it's even actually more, it's actually in a sense 36 hours, because every hour that comes into our reality, if we learn how to access it and tap into it, it's thus a cumulative. So tonight is the holiest night. And here's what the mystics say. The mystics say that what a tzaddik can acquire on Yom Kippur, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every Cyril and Sandra and Svi and James can achieve on last night Hanukkah. Last night Hanukkah, there's this amazing gift going around for free. It's actually free. As you know, it's come to learn me on a Sunday night. Not only is that free, it's actually free to access the hidden light of giving on what's called Zos Hanukkah. So I really recommend this. Definitely stay with me for the next 55 minutes. Don't go anywhere, and let's learn together and really try and connect. Maybe turn the lights off, put a candle on, like if your menorah is still there, try and access a bit of light and really connect. But then afterwards, please do me a favor, say, if you haven't said yet tonight, the Psalms, either or ideally both, 91 and 119. And then make a prayer for you and your family and your loved ones and for the world and for humanity and for the Jewish people. Because tonight, when you make that Tehillim, and actually do it in the merit of 2 very holy people, do it also in the merit of 3, actually, King David, because it's actually a omen to say Tehillim in the merit of David HaMelech, Ben Yishai, bringing his father called Yishai, and even his mother called Nitzevet, and her mother called Adiel. So to mention Yishai and Nitzevet and Adiel, all add. But then yesterday, I don't know if you're aware, on Rosh Chodesh Tevet, it was Avraham Avinu's yortzeit. Abraham passed away on Rosh Chodesh Tevet. Do you know that, Svi? Abraham passed away. Avraham Avinu died. It's his yortzeit yesterday, so we can do things like Eloi Nishmas Avraham Avinu and Reb Meir Balanes. Reb Meir Balanes is his yortzeit. So to maybe give some charity in the merit of Reb Meir Balanes, to learn Torah in the merit, and specifically to say Tehillim in his merit, hopefully then they're with you advocating. You've got this 36 hours of Or Hagonos, all Zos Hanukkah, all the light of Hanukkah is with you. And then when you make that prayer, first of all, pray for others. Don't be selfish with your prayers, because you have the potency of a tzaddik tonight. So first and foremost, pray for others. Please pray for others. And then very much, please pray for yourself. And I'm really excited to see the fantastic results that I'm convinced will come, because that's what we're told. On last night Hanukkah, you can daven for anything, any miracle, even things which you think naturally can't come. People are saying, it's never going to happen. Daven for it. Obviously, only pray for good things. Don't pray to rob a bank or something like that. That would be a good prayer. But Hashem, we should all merit to see miracles in our time. So that's those Hanukkah. Now let's get stuck in. So James has put on the Zoom and hopefully on the Facebook as well, the link to tonight. So we're learning Mesillas Yesharim. For those who've been joining me for the first time on a Sunday night, And if you like this book, because it's the best book ever, it's this book over here, called Mesillas Yesharim, Path of the Just. We're now on our YouTube channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to J Network 613. All our previous talks are there. So you can access and go from obviously lesson 1, if you're enjoying it, and just, it's there, binge away. Instead of binging on Netflix and Money Heist, you can binge on Rabbi Hill and Path of the Just. And it's a much better thing to binge on, because actually every moment of binging, you're getting it rewarded, both in this world and the next. So utilize, if you want, these hours and hours of talks we've now done on Path of the Just. We're now tonight up to chapter 19. So if you actually got your book, look at chapter 19. Nice to see you, Verda, there in Turkey. What's up? Happy Hanukkah. And what you should do is try and follow the link. Here we go. Let's learn together. Chapter 19 of Mesillas Yesharim. By the way, if you remember, there's a chapter a while ago, chapter 11, which kind of took forever. Chapter 19 is going to also take us a few weeks, because it's 30 pages. It needs a lot of thought. It needs a lot of depth. Exactly what's going on in chapter 19. So let's go through this together. Nice to meet you, everyone on Instagram. Welcome. I'll give some people some waves. Okay, here we go. Everyone ready? Chapter 19, let's go. So it's called Chelkei HaChasidus. Hi, everybody. Chelkei HaChasidus means how to start acquiring the different elements of Chasidut. So as we learned last 2 weeks ago, Chasidut doesn't mean like Hasidim now. It's not referring to what's termed as people with long peyotes and dressing in a very Eastern European manner. That's not the definition of Hasidut. Hasidut, we're going to learn, it's referring to piety, extreme kindness, spiritual excellence, like all of you guys, right? That's the goal, to achieve this level of spiritual excellence, to get an A star in spirituality. So says the Ramchal, how do we do that? So 2 weeks ago, he said there's 2 parts of it. There's between man and God, and our relationship between man and God. And we spoke a few weeks ago, said go back to our Instagram and J Network to look up that talk, which is essentially was about every mitzvah. The commandments between man and God do beautifully. So if you can see the menorah behind me, it's a beautiful menorah with oil. We try and beautify the mitzvot. Just like the things you value in life, we generally beautify. So it's up to you what you value. If you value Hashem's mitzvot, you're going to beautify them. So step 1 for being a chassid is to beautify the mitzvot. So to buy a beautiful cup when you're going to use your cup to make kiddush, it shouldn't just be any old plastic cup. In fact, you really shouldn't make kiddush in a plastic cup. It should be really and ideally a proper cup, and ideally a beautiful cup. And people spend a lot of money on a silver becher, and it's good use of money to spend money on items of mitzvot. So that we learned that 2 weeks ago. Tonight, and I just want to quote you one line, he says in Sukkah, page 38, if you look at the third, let's go through. He says the first of the 2 concerns man's relationship to Hashem, which is the meticulous fulfillment of all mitzvahs to one's maximum capabilities. So whenever you pick up a mitzvah, do it to your maximum, not the minimum. And then he said this meticulousness is what the sages have said in Sukkah, page 38, 38a, where he says in Hebrew, the vestiges, the small parts of the mitzvah hold back retribution. If you don't want to get ordeals in your life, if you don't want to get challenges in your life, if you don't want to get pain in your life, the Talmud says in 38 in Sukkah, the small details of the mitzvah, those small details will make all the difference. And we learned this last week a bit like my wife always says to me, it's the small things that count. You know, she's not into my big gestures of a big bouquet of flowers. That doesn't necessarily give her the feel of love. What gives my wife the feel of love is those small details, day in, minute in, should I say day in, minute out, of care and compassion, connection. So the same idea, those details where the way we perform Hashem's mitzvahs is going to make all the difference. That's what we learned last week. Tonight, we're going to go to an amazing topic. I really hope you like it. And it's super deep. And it goes like this. Here we go. Says the Ramchal, the second step of achieving piety, of achieving excellence is concerning man relationship ben adam lachaveiro, between man and your friends, interpersonal relationships, how you treat each other. Step one is how you treat God. Step two is how you treat each other. And he writes, the measure of benevolence, the measure of kindness that a person should always bestow upon others, while at the same time you must ensure that no harm befalls them through him. This applies to their physical, financial, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Meaning, let's try and explain what's happening. Let's try and explain. People think religion is very much about belief in God, your relationship to God. Judaism is saying that's just half the story. The other half, which is as important, is how we treat each other. How we treat each other. Are we kind, compassionate, considerate? The way we treat each other, that is the definition of religion. That is the definition of spirituality. And I'll give you a few amazing proofs. Number one, as you know, studying mysticism, the numerical values are really important. So anyone can write down, what is the numerical value of Torah? What is the numerical value of Torah? Kaf is 400, Vov 6, and Resh is 200, and Hey is Vov. That equals anyone? Anyone like to put into the chat? The numerical value of Torah? Anyone? Come on. Can't see it yet. Come on, Svi. What's the numerical value of Torah? James? So it's really not hard. 400 plus 200 plus 6 plus 5 equals 611. The numerical value is 611. If you're like confused, like 1 minute, I thought there was 613 commandments. That's why we say Torah Tzivalanu Moshe. Moshe gave us 611 mitzvot. The other two of the 613, who gave it to us? Hashem himself. God himself spoke to all of us at Sinai. The reason why I'm a rabbi, to be quite honest with you, the reason why I chose this path is because I know 100% that the Torah is true. How do we know that? The fact that God revealed himself not to one prophet, not to one person. Where Judaism is unique amongst all other religions is that God came to all of us. He came to 3 million of us. And that 3 million of us, 600,000 men, 2.4 million women and children, all heard Hashem say, I am Hashem your God, don't worship other idols. At that point, we couldn't take the prophecy anymore. We couldn't take hearing Hashem's light. It's like tonight, we've got these 36 hidden lights out there in the world. In Hanukkah, we can access that because it's hidden. If it was revealed, we couldn't receive it. It would be too powerful. Can you imagine if Hashem started speaking to all of us now? Our vessel couldn't cope. One of the reasons God doesn't. So Hashem spoke to the whole world, to the whole Jewish nation. After 2, we just couldn't cope anymore. And we begged Moshe Rabbeinu to take over. So in the end, he took over the Torah. So the 611 mitzvot. That's why Torah is 611. What is amazing is the word used by the sages for kindness, which is called Gemilot Chasadim. You heard that phrase? Gemilot Chasadim, which is to give kindness. That comes to exactly the same, 611. And just to explain that's mad, that's bonkers. Again, like this is a cup here, a glass. So if you do it in English and say that glass equals 8 and L equals 30 and A is 1, and then you said glass and you connect it to the word table, they're not going to come to the same number, exactly the same number. The fact that in Hebrew, when Hashem forms Hebrew, Hashem's forming reality of the world, which is hidden. It's like a DNA, spiritual coding. So when you have 2 words which are identical, they are the very same matter. So the fact that Torah, which means God's wisdom, the Old Testament, is exactly the same numerical value as kindness, is now telling you how important kindness is. It's 2 sides of the same coin. So when I'm going to go and pray in a few hours' time when I finish tonight and go and have a chat with God, and if I'm to go and to give charity, it's 2 sides of the same coin, if you don't mind the pun. You've got heads and tails in a coin. You've got relationship to God, relationship to man, and with women, and to mankind. And here's the problem, everybody. There's a huge fallacy out there. Maybe you feel that. Like if I asked you which out of the 2 do you excel in? It comes more easily to you. It's normally one more than the other. And that's why, for example, you have some people who are spiritually more connected. They have a better relationship to man and God. Here's the problem. If let's say you're so-called very religious, whatever that means, or the word in Hebrew from, right? And you're doing Shabbat very well, kosher very well, but you're not a nice person, you don't treat each other nice, that's not from. That's not religious, sorry to say. So we're learning tonight from the Ramchal. If you're not a mensch, if you're not kind, if you're not considerate, if you're not making other people feel good about themselves, that's not religious. But conversely, it's the opposite as well. And that's the problem. Some people, they're the loveliest people. They're super duper kind. They're caring. They're into volunteering. But they just don't do God very well. They don't have a relationship with God. So that's obviously not spiritual excellence as well. If you want to be spiritually excellent, my dear friends, it's both. That's why Hashem gave us in the Ten Commandments 2 tablets. Tablet 1, the mitzvot between man and Hashem. And tablet 2, the mitzvot, the 5 commandments between man and man. And they're both parts of the 10 commandments. So the 613 commandments is a merger, a fusion, an amalgam of mitzvot ben adam le'makom, between man and Hashem, and mitzvot ben adam lachaveiro, between man and man. By the way, there's a famous Mishnah in Ethics for Fathers, the first one. Maybe we'll learn that together one day. It's amazing, it's super deep. And the very famous first Mishnah says there are 3 things the world stands on. Torah. So right now we're engaged in the mitzvah of learning Torah. Anytime you learn, whether it be the Old Testament, the Chumash, whether it be Talmud, whether it be mysticism, whether it be Jewish law, you're learning Torah. Torah is one of the foundations of the world. The other one, it says Gemilut Chasadim, uses that line, Gemilut Chasadim, love and kindness, how you treat other people. That's another pillar of the world, which is represented with Abraham. Torah is represented with Jacob. But there's a middle one as well, which is Isaac, which is called Tfilah. The numerical value of Tfilah Elokim, praying to Hashem, again, exactly 611. So the truth is, the Ramchal doesn't say it here, but the truth is there's 3 pillars. There's learning Torah, acts of kindness, and praying to God. And they're all absolutely pivotal, all paramount, all add up exactly to 611. And if I was to really freak you out, if you were able to access the depth of what I'm going to share with you here, it's a bit bad, a bit bonkers. The same number, 611, essentially when Hashem creates yin, he creates yang. Hashem creates Batman, he creates the superheroes, he creates the penguin, or whoever the villains are. So when you've got a superhero, you've got a super villain. So you've got a super villain, you've got an opposition to Torah and Avodah and Gemilut Chasadim. Anyone know what that opposition is? Actually, don't put it down. You shouldn't, especially at night. The overall arching CEO of the opposition is called Satan. It's a spiritual negative force. And I don't know if you're aware, Satan, there's a male Satan and female Satan energy. Male Satan energy and female Satan energy. And I'm going to not say out the name because you shouldn't say out the name at night because it brings negative connotations. But the Hebrew for the male energy of Satan is Samael. In Hebrew, Samach Mem, and then an Aleph and a Lamed, Hashem's name. And then if the female negative satanic energy is the one beginning with an L, right? I can only say it because it has a lot of negative connotations. In Hebrew, El Yud Taf. Amazingly and like crazy, the gematria of female energy, negative satanic energy, and male energy, that Samach Mem, Aleph Lamed, and Lamed Yud Taf, exactly comes to 611. So now you're learning the importance of the word 611. 611 it's all about 611. 611 is the secret of what we're trying to achieve in this world. We're trying to reach 611. You can either reach it in the good or, God forbid, get caught up in the bad. And if you get caught up in a world of Satanism, either neglecting your relationship to God or you're neglecting your relationship to others, then 611 will get to you. The question is, will you go to 611 good or 611, God forbid, bad? That's the question. It's really deep and really mind-blowing when I learned this gematria from the Shla Kadosh, which is a really life-changing gematria for me. Anyway, so now we're starting to understand the point. Now, why is it, my friends, why is it that kindness isn't just another mitzvah? Again, the 613 mitzvot, you might have thought kindness kindness is just another of the mitzvot. It's not. It's the definition of being religious. It's the definition of your relationship to God. It's the definition of being spiritual. It's the definition of being chassidut. It's not just another mitzvah. It's almost everything. In fact, I'm sure you all know the famous story. Someone wanted to convert to Judaism and they came to Shammai and they said, tell me the Torah just on one foot. Give me a quick summary. I don't have time to learn it. Just give me it on one foot. And Shammai was very strict. He was into Gevurah, said, get out of here. You're taking the mick. Yalla. He left me, Paul. Get out of it. So the prospective convert wasn't impressed. So he finds the famous Hillel. Knocks on Hillel's door. Can you please tell me the Torah on one foot? And Hillel always wants to oblige. Hillel said, sure. Just don't do to another what you wouldn't want done to yourself. That's it. Everything else is commentary. You get that? Treat other people the way you'd want to be treated yourself. If you can learn to do that, that's going to define your relationship to God. Now, the question is, why is that? Why is that so pivotal? Why isn't that just another mitzvah? Like eating matzah on Pesach is a mitzvah, putting on tefillin is a mitzvah, lighting Shabbat candles is a mitzvah. Why isn't treating someone well just another mitzvah? It's so much more than that. Let's try and explain this to you. I'll do it through Abraham, who really embodies and personifies what it means to be kind. He really pioneered kindness, and the female kindness was pioneered through Rebecca, through Rivka. So listen to the famous story about Abraham. Avraham Avinu is 90 years old. He's sitting out his tent, he's sitting outside, and he's just had circumcision 3 days earlier, which, by the way, for an adult to have circumcision, it's going to hurt a little bit, my friends. It's not going to be pleasant, right? You're going to need an anesthetic. He didn't have an anesthetic, and he wasn't on paracetamol. He was just on spiritual bliss. He was okay. But he was on obviously a bit of pain. He wanted to continue being hospitable. Abraham's whole mission was to be hospitable, to be kind. So Hashem comes to visit in the Sedra Vayera, where it says Hashem in Genesis. Hashem comes to visit Abraham and says, get into bed. I want to visit you. The first time you see visiting the sick is when God comes to Abraham. Who knows? What did Abraham say when Hashem comes around? Can you imagine? You're not feeling well. God comes round for a visit. He wants to visit, which, by the way, we learn the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick from this case. What does Hashem say? Do you know what Abraham says? Abraham says, Hashem, not a good time. Can you come back? Can you imagine the chutzpah? Like if I got a knock on the door tonight, and it was the Queen of England, and the Queen said, Avi, I'd like to have a chat. I think I'd like to do whatever she said, otherwise I could be off to the tower. But God is able, Avraham Avinu is able to say to Hashem, Hashem, come back later. I need to look after some travelers, some gypsies I need to look after. And how did Abraham know that the act of achnasat orchim, looking after guests, was greater than receiving the divine presence? And it is. It's called Gedolah. Achnasas orchim mi kabbalas pnei hashchina. If you've got guests to look after, that in a sense is the number one mitzvah, which, by the way, in Hebrew, oireach means a guest, mi'ar chet, it means the infinite light. One way to receive Hanukkah during the year is to have guests. Tonight we have the or chet, the 8 lights. If you want to have the or chet every night of your year, have a guest. Invite guests to your home. It's one of the most spiritual things you can possibly do. So how did Abraham know that? How did Abraham know that it was rather he looks after his guests than looks after Hashem? And the answer is very deep. It's finished Rabbi Twersky, because Avraham Avinu knew the secret. Listen to this. How we treat each other is the ultimate litmus test in how we activate the godliness within us. You see, Hashem is kind. The essence of God is he's kind, he's compassionate. Animals, my dear friends, might be very cute, and I know everyone likes animals at the moment, but they don't have free will, and they don't choose compassion. You know, Daisy the cow doesn't sit there with the other cows thinking, I really need to share more of my grass to those very poor cows down the road. But you know what? Let's give about 10%. They don't do that. They're instinctive. Animals are instinctive one way or the other. Human beings are anything but instinctive. We deliberate, maybe too much, and we have free will. And when we choose goodness, then we're activating the godliness within us. Meaning our job is to cleave to Hashem, to emulate Hashem, to walk in his path. The greatest way we walk in his path is how we are to each other. Do we smile at someone in the street and just give them a smile? Have you made anyone happy today? Have you given good advice today to someone? Have you made someone's life a little bit better today? If you haven't, you've still got time. You're not sleeping yet. Try and send someone a nice message before you go to sleep tonight. Because that is the definition of spirituality. And that's what Abraham understood. How we treat each other, that is essentially our examination of how good we are. So what I'm saying, Natalie, is forget about rules right now. There's no rules, just be nice. You know, there's two areas to Judaism, what we're learning tonight. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about between man and God. And yes, that has lots of rules, and we have to learn how to enjoy and celebrate the rules and not look at them as rules and rituals, but look at them as expressions of love between you and God. But tonight we're talking about no rules. Just be nice, be kind, make someone smile, do someone a favor, go the extra mile for someone. That is the definition of spirituality, says the Ramchal. So now let's have a look, go back to the words of the Ramchal, go back inside, and let's start going through it together. Says the Ramchal, here are the different ways you achieve that. Number one, the guf. With your physicality, with your money, with your body. What does that mean? He writes, with reference to physical well-being, one must endeavor to assist all people as much as possible and to ease their plight. So it's specifically to try and help people in need. Help someone with an issue that they have. And by the way, for example, we've all got expertise, right? The accountants amongst you, you can help people with their accounts. The doctors amongst you, if you can give some people a bit of medical help. The teachers amongst you, people who are good with technology, whatever you're good at, try and share your gift and your strength with another that doesn't have that. That's what the Ramchal is saying here. And he says, the famous Mishnah Pirkei Avot, V'noiseh ba'oil im chaveira. You need to share the burdens of your friend. Let's understand that. Share the burdens of your friend. Share the burdens of your friend means to literally feel what they're going through. And just like if you were going through it, you do everything you can to get yourself out of that situation. So on the same vein, we need to make the same level of help to someone else. So for example, if you've got someone in your life who's not feeling well, who's a bit sick, try and feel what they're going through. Feel that pain, feel that helplessness, and say, oh my gosh, it should incite you and induce you to try and urgently do something about it, as if it was your own family's pain. You know, there was a famous mystic who said, I'm not a chassid because I still love my children more than others. Again, he says, don't call me a chassid, because to be a real chassid, you've got to love everybody equally. And because he felt he loved his children more than other people's children, he felt he couldn't be termed a chassid. Do you know what that level? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Meaning the goal is, and the chassid will love everybody equally, whether it's his family, whether it's other people, whether they're total strangers, whether they're people he doesn't eat, who haven't been kind to him. The chassid, the tzaddik, is someone who cares for everybody equally and shares the burden with that person. And then says the Ramchal, and if he can prevent any bodily harm that threatens another person or eliminate it after it's materialized, he must exert himself to do so. So you've got to go that extra mile and ensure that people in your life, people in your circle, don't go through pain. And almost be proactive. Think, who in your network can you help tonight? Do you know anyone in your network? Think about it right now. Think about it right now, everybody. Who in your network is going through a tough time at the moment? And then ask yourself, what can I do to help them? And it could be just to have a chat and to have a coffee. Sometimes just to chat. Sometimes even just to give practical advice. sometimes to actually give tangible advice, to even lend someone money. You know, my father, Oliver Shalom, was just spoken about last week on the radio by the famous pop singer, Alex Clare, who is a Baal Teshuva, someone who used to be secular and is now is a Torah Jew and keeps the Torah. He's a famous singer. Maybe James can put one of his songs Too Close on. James put his Alex Clare Too Close just to see how big he is. Like millions of people have watched his song. So he stayed with my parents. Alex Clare stayed with my parents. And he said on the radio, he said, I want to share with you how amazing Rabbi Hill Sr. was. He goes, I stayed in this amazing family Hill, and there was a time I couldn't pay my rent. And my dad told him, don't worry about it. Who needs money? Don't worry, forget about it. Like, which landlord does that? Genuinely, which landlord just says, you have to can't afford it, no problem. Some landlords like get angry. You've got like one more day, otherwise I'm calling the bailiffs round, and I'm going to get people to come in and beat you up. You know what? My dad, money wasn't important. Really wasn't important. He didn't value it. Wasn't, and it was an opportunity to help relieve someone's pain. So yalla, he did that. And so I'm telling to you, even to lend someone money, to help someone that's in terrible financial need, we can all help. We can all help. And that's what we're saying here, to v'noisei olim chaveira, to share the burden of your friend is one of the greatest acts. If you want to be a chassid, you need to do that. And by the way, it'll be amazing if you can do that over Hanukkah, especially this last day of Hanukkah. Whatever you do over Hanukkah is amplified, is exacerbated, because today's the day. It's one of the holiest days of the year. So every mitzvah you do is amplified, is worth more in a sense. Let me give you some examples of what it means to be a chassid. An amazing story from the Talmud in Ta'anit, page 22a, if James wants to put the link. Ta'anit 22a. And listen to this. The Talmud relates that Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi, and I'm sure you know that there's this Kabbalistic position that Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi, never died and comes into every generation at different times to teach us lessons. You could have met him today, everybody. You could have met, once I was saved by a lifeguard who I have no idea how they found me because there was no lifeguards when I was looking. I'm convinced it could have been Elijah the prophet. Who knows? So we all meet Eliyahu Hanavi at a certain time in our life. And the Talmud says Eliyahu Hanavi came to this marketplace and told the big rabbis there, because some of the great rabbis would actually know, unlike people like us who haven't got a clue if we bump into Elijah the prophet, but the tzaddikim knew exactly who Elijah the prophet was. So they bumped into him and they said, Elijah said to him, there are two people in this marketplace who were assured of the highest place in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden. So the sages were so curious, they wanted to know, who is these people? What have they done? And he pointed us, those two guys over there. And they were amazed because these two guys didn't look very religious. They didn't look like great rabbis. They were like, how on earth are these two at the head of the position up there? How have they got the biggest portion in the world to come? So these rabbis confronted the two men. They said, what do you do? So you know what the two men said? We are comedians. We're comedians. There are some people who are sad and disagreeable. And when we see someone dejected, we try and amuse them. We try and bring them cheer. That's what they do. They would crack jokes to people sad. Says Eliyahu Hanavi, they're the top of the top. If you can do that and make someone who's having a tough day feel good about themselves, you don't have to be a comedian like Michael McIntyre to do that, right? You don't have to crack the best joke. You can literally just try and take them out of their gloom by sometimes just talking about something else, changing the topic. But if you can do that, relieve someone of their sadness, relieve some of their pain, the Talmud says that makes you one of the leading righteous people in the next world. See how easy it is, everyone? So visiting the sick, comforting the bereaved, bringing joy to a groom and bride, on easy examples of relieving someone's distress, increasing someone's happiness. There was a famous example of someone who was Mesillas al Chaveru, someone in the Bible who felt the pain of others. You know who that was? Anyone want to guess? Very famous episode who's like the quintessential scenario of someone who felt empathy with the people. Anyone like to guess who it was in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the Chumash, who did that? The person I'm thinking about was Moshe Rabbeinu, was Moses. What happened with Moses? If you look up Exodus chapter 2, verse 11, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he's, he was the prince of Egypt, he was actually in Pharaoh's palace, the story of Moshe. And then eventually, at a certain point, he realized his people were the Jewish people. And he went out, says the Bible, amongst his brethren and saw their pain. So what does the Midrash says? It says that he went amongst the slaves and lent his shoulder to help them with heavy loads. He literally got stuck in himself. The actual hands-on help to a few of many thousands of slaves. He did that. And more than that, it wasn't merely, says the great mystic Rabbi Levovitz, he says, it wasn't just a gesture to lift their spirits. He says that when one merely sees another's plight, even though one's emotions are aroused, the empathy with the suffering is incomplete. So Moshe felt that he was not genuinely empathized with his brethren unless he actually felt the heavy weight. So he almost went and put the heavy weight on his shoulders just that he could feel what his brothers and sisters were going through. Again, you're a prince in Egypt and you don't have to go through the pain. So you're thinking, I'll try and have political influence. Not Moshe Rabbeinu. He went literally and acted as a slave. Just that he could feel what they were going through. Can you imagine how amazing that level is? It's a different level, everyone. Different level. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's continue. Let's go back to the Ramchal's words. Says the Ramchal. Says Lutzato. Also, just mammon, with money. One should give financial assistance to another person as much as your resources allow, in whatever way possible. You should prevent any harm from befalling someone. And surely one must avoid causing any type of damage that could result in harming others, whether individually, collectively. And if at the moment no damage is foreseen, but there's a possibility, he should remove and eradicate any potential cause of damage. Another beautiful Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, Mishnah 12, it says, Yehi moven chabercha choviv alecha k'shalov. The money of another person should be as precious to you as your own. So again, just like how your money, you're so precious about your money and you know exactly how much it is and you're very careful when you spend it or not, get to that same level of empathy for someone else's possessions, for someone else's money. That's what the Mishnah is trying to instruct us to do. So I asked you at the beginning to do me a favor, and when we finish tonight, to say some Psalms 119 and 91. If I could ask you to do one more thing, give a bit of charity tonight. Even if it's, a few pennies. Do the act tonight on the last night of Hanukkah, giving some charity. That's one of the greatest spiritual acts we can do. And you'll see it's tzedakah, charity. It's a game changer, everybody. And some people, they struggle a bit with charity. But if you can just work on becoming charitable and ideally getting to a place and giving your 10%, because the notion is that it's after tax. The idea is that it's just money's only given to you to then help other people with. That's why Hashem is giving you money. It's not there just to, buy, a bigger house and a bigger yacht and a bigger jet and a bigger space rocket to go to the moon, right? That's not why Hashem gives you money, with all due respect. He's giving you money. How can you make the world a better place? So if he's going to give you this year £100,000, Mitzvah Hashem, say Amen, for those who want that. Please God, Hashem should give you all at least £100,000. Amen. Then you should give at very least, therefore, 10,000 to charity. You should, James is going for that. And then 10,000 isn't yours. So really, Hashem's giving you 90,000, and that 10,000 is enabling the 90,000. That's where you need to look at it. And it's much better if when the money comes in, you don't even count all the money. Straight away, you try and take off 10% from the beginning. And it's an amazing thing that the Torah says, normally you can't test Hashem. But in the area of charity, you can test the God. Hashem promises that by you giving charity between 10 and 20%, you'll never be financially harmed. Now, a lot of people struggle. They're like, well, man, I can't afford my rent and I can't afford this. How do you really expect me to give? So I'm not saying you should give a big amount, but I can assure you, Torah assures you that one of the only areas you can test Hashem is give a lump to charity, and you'll watch over the coming maybe days or weeks or months, that money comes back times 10. It comes back times 10. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, I've done it time and time and time again. And by the way, when you give charity that a few pennies, that's one thing. When you give charity where it hurts, when you're like, oh my gosh, it's like, you know, I'm not very good as a swimmer. And I'm saying this. So when I have to go on my mikveh under the water, I have to take a big breath first. I'm not very good at breathing underwater. So, and then you go down. So sometimes when you have to give charity, you're like, oh my gosh, can't really afford this. And you breathe. And then you do it. That's when it's real stocker. That's when it's real charity. And that's when it's of incredible value, huge spiritual value, when you can do that. But by the way, again, especially people who are struggling financially, it's not just in the area of money. Rav Moshe Feinstein says you should be giving at least, that's the rabbi at the top there, the top rabbi, can you see? It's 10% of time, he says. 10% of your time you should give in the genre of volunteering and charitable time. Or even if you've got a friend who's going through a hard time, that can be part of your 10% of time, which is also charitable. So time is charitable. As I said, when you're looking after guests, when you're visiting the sick, this is also comes under the genre of charity in a sense. So that's something to do. Let's continue. I want to share something with you. Listen to this, another amazing line. And this is from a very much in Safari, if you could up Baba Basra 9b. The Talmud says in Baba Basra 9b the following line. Listen to this. It says, the Gemara says, the one who gives money to a poor person, he receives 6 heavenly blessings. But if you comfort that person with reassuring words, you receive 11 blessings. So however great charity is, which we spoke about it a lot, but there's nothing more powerful than giving someone your time and your words. You give someone time and words, 11 blessings, nearly double. And then it says in Ketuvot, Talmud Ketuvot, page 111b, one who flashes a smile to another. You just give someone a smile, thereby improving their emotional well-being. That's greater than one who benefits him physically by giving him milk to drink. And finally, the Ovester of Nosson, chapter 13 says, if you greet your friend with a pleasant countenance, even if you give him nothing tangible, it's considered to be showered him upon all the gifts in the world. So we see an amazing thing, my friends. We see the power of the smile. Okay? So if you just go to someone and you give someone a lovely smile, you give someone an amazing smile. It's amazing watching them smile. You smile, they smile back at you. You know, sometimes when I go, pre-COVID days, when you go shopping without masks and you can see each other, and the person at the till is there, they're almost like they're so bored and they feel like, you know, no one's talking to them. And you just even smile. Their smile back is amazing. You can lift their spirits through a smile. There's a famous story in England, I forget about the guy, who was just off. He was super depressed. He went to a train station to kill himself. True story. Famous story of a Jewish person in England. He was off to the train station. He had enough. He was going to kill himself. He was going to commit suicide. And he writes, a stranger smiled at him and then had a little conversation with him. And that lifted his spirits and saved his life. So you could even save a life literally through a smile, through a word of kindness, through lifting someone's spirits. The Ramchal saying here, you want to have chassidut, you want to become pious, holy, spiritually excellent, it's going to be shown how kind you are. Then he writes the following. Spiritually, one must try to do whatever one can to bring satisfaction to another, whether the issue is one of honor or in other areas. The performance of any deed the one knows will please another is included in the mitzvah of piety. And of course, says the Ramchal, one must be careful not to cause hurt whatsoever in any way. So if you, God forbid, create emotional hurts in someone, that's not a chassidut, it's done a sin. The underlying principles, all these categories of minat chasadim, Hashem blesses you tremendously. So what does that mean? It's an amazing story about a rabbi I had the pleasure of meeting called Rav Shach, Relezer Man Shach, the great Rosh Hashiva in Ponovich. And there's this idea, and I really hope and bless you that you're going to have an opportunity to really meet tzaddikim in your time and to be able to connect to these great tzaddikim and seek advice from them, because it's a game changer if you can do that. So people used to go and ask advice, and I recommend you do that. So this man just got a job opportunity offer from a great school in Israel and wanted to get a blessing from the rabbi that things would go well. So he went to Rav Shach and said, Rabbi, can I have a blessing? I got offered this job. Rav Shach closed his eyes for a moment. So that's how they know these things. He was able to channel some spiritual information. And he opens up his eyes and says, no, I can't give you a blessing, I'm afraid. Because the job you're going to take was someone else's job who was unfairly dismissed. And if you take that job, you're going to cause that person tremendous pain. So I can't give you a blessing for that job. Do you know how beautiful that is? We're living in such a cutthroat world that someone offers you a job, you just take it with two hands and say, thank you very much. Do we ever give a thought for maybe the person you're replacing? Maybe they're suffering. Maybe they're emotionally going to be in pain. Maybe when they see that someone else has been employed, they're going to feel a broken heart. We don't think that. Rav Shachta, Tzaddikim do. People who read this book do. Because if you read this book of Mesillas Yesharim and you want to follow the path of the just, you've got to act like one of the just. And one of that is to start thinking, what will be the collateral damage done to these actions? What is the consequences? What is the consequences of taking on the job? Now, by the way, I'm not saying practically, halachically to you, this is a halachic conclusion that you shouldn't take jobs if someone is unfairly dismissed. I'm not saying this. This isn't a halacha share tonight. This is a spiritual talk, just sharing with you a bit of a taster. A bit of a taster. Even if you take the job, have a little think first. That's what I'm saying. Have a little thought. Who are you replacing? You know, because it could cause them damage. Or maybe even once you've taken the job, sending a little message to that other person. I'm really sorry you went through what you went through, you know, and I feel for you, and I really give you a blessing. You find another great job. I don't know. Maybe that'll make it worse. So you gotta think carefully what you say. But if you had the level, which this guy did, to not take a job because you're going to harm someone's feelings, wow, I would respect you for eternity, because that's huge. It's not easy. That's the point. And this is what I think you need to start being aware. Spiritual excellence doesn't come easy. If you really want to make it big spiritually, there's going to be real sacrifices. It's not going to be, hey, you know, right now, I'll be honest, like from the moment I've woken up, I've been on the go. And I still haven't found my chance to go to Daf Marv. So when I finish, like if you want to be on the spiritual path, it's hard work. You know, Edward does, I was with him a few hours ago. I haven't literally stopped, and I haven't stopped. But that's good, because that's when you're achieving things in this world. If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And if you want to be spiritually excellent, there's going to be sacrifices you have to make. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be chilled. You're not going to live this like comfortable, tranquil, you know, sunbathing lifestyle. If you want to have a good tan, and that's what you want to take with you to the world to come, a good tan, by all means. But if you want to take with you a relationship to Hashem on a very beautiful level, there's going to be things which is going to be hard for you to achieve in this world. So again, this is a big mistake people make. An opportunity comes and it's like, whoa, that's really inconvenient. That's super tough. Obviously, I'm not meant to do it. Opposite. If it's inconvenient and tough, but it's come into your domain, maybe that's exactly what Hashem wants you to do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come to your doorstep. You know, if someone comes sending you a message, I really need help, instead of saying, oh, I get so many messages, so annoying, they're so rude. Instead of saying that, think 1 minute, as the Baal Shem Tov says, every message that comes to you is a communication from Hashem. Hashem's in charge of all emails, WhatsApps, Facebook messaging, right? God's overall orchestrating everything. So if it comes to your email address, now obviously if it's like a prince from Nigeria, right, saying that they need a £20,000 loan, so there's something called a con artist, and then you're meant to use your brain and press the delete button and don't press on the link, right? So I'm not suggesting that every message comes, you press on the link and give your credit cards. The rabbi is not saying that at all, and don't sue me because I didn't say that, and James will be there to testify that I didn't say that, right? So don't sue me, but what I'm suggesting is every message that comes to you, it's come for a reason. What you're meant to do with that, you've got to use your brain, you've got to use your heart, you've got to use your soul. You might need to call your rabbi and ask what to do. But the point is, just because it's inconvenient, just because it's maybe 2 a.m, just because you might have to go a long way to go and do help, just because maybe financially you're not doing that well. So you're thinking, really, am I in a position to help someone financially? If it's come to your doorstep, if it's come to your email inbox, you got to think about it. Maybe that's exactly what Hashem wants you to do. Because maybe Hashem feels you are capable of spiritual excellence. Maybe you are capable of chassidut. And if you're capable of chassidut, you've got to go that extra mile. Let me give you a few stories of people who are capable of chassidut before I finish. So the Talmud says, this is a Talmud in Baba Kama 50b. James is on fire tonight, so I'm throwing it all on him. I'm thinking he can achieve it. 50b in Baba Kama, it says the following. There's an idea about your neighbor's property should be as important to you as your own. So that's why, number one, you shouldn't ever litter the street. The notion of like being a litter bug, people just throw their litter in, if it's not in my house, it's okay. That's spiritually wrong. That the whole world should be a zone where you should never litter. Just like you wouldn't just throw rubbish in your home, in your house, in your bedroom, then you shouldn't be throwing rubbish in the street. Or worse, even still someone else's garden. The Talmud says of a man, listen to this story, it's quite a deep story, which James has put, of a man who was clearing his garden, was throwing rocks into the street. Okay, so people do that, right? They just want things out of their garden, they don't care where it goes. So he was clearing rocks and chucking the rocks on the street. So a chassid, so when the Talmud talks about chassid again, it's not like a modern day chassid. It's the real chassid, the spiritual, someone who's super pious, said to him, why do you take rocks from a property that doesn't belong to you and throw it into your own property? So the man laughed and said, what are you chatting about? You obviously been drinking a bit tonight. And this is my property and that's not my property. That's why I'm chucking it to the other side. A while later, the man lost his money, had to sell his house, was homeless, was walking along the street, and he stumbled over one of the rocks he'd thrown out from his garden. And then he said, how wise was that chassid? My own property is something I can lose, whereas public property is always mine. It's really deep. So when you walk on the street, to be honest, that's always your property because it's public. Your private property is your property today. If Hashem wants you to be, for it to be your property tomorrow, who the heck knows? Maybe it's how you treat public property will be to define if you can keep your private property. That's a beautiful idea. Next idea. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, famous rabbi called Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, was once visiting Warsaw when the word spread that the great sage was in town. That's what happens when you hear like a big tzaddik is coming to the city. Everyone gathers at the synagogue for the mincha. And they were astonished. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta normally used to pray for a long time. Long time. Everyone finished praying. He was still going. But they saw he'd completed his prayers very quickly. And afterwards they said, like, were you not feeling well? Why didn't you want to daven to Hashem? Like, has he upset you today? So he said to them, what do you mean? People have closed their stores and shops to come to greet me. Extending my prayer would have caused them to wait longer to speak to me. And that would have taken them away from their work and their earnings. I can't pray at someone else's expense. Say that again. I can't pray at someone else's expense. This is pivotal spirituality, my friends. What we say in kind of yeshivish parlance, don't be firm on someone else's cheshbon. right? Which means don't be religious if someone else is going to lose out. That's not being religious. That's being non-religious. You know, our job to be spiritual is first and foremost to care about someone else. Last story, the great Chofetz Chaim, the rabbi in the middle. The rabbi in the middle is the Chofetz Chaim, Yisrael Meir Kagan. The Chofetz Chaim wrote one of his books. He contracted with the yeshivas. By the way, the reason I have the rabbis in the house is it says in the Bible that your eyes should see the face of your teachers. So just for our eyes to see these great spiritual sages gives you an inspiration. I'll be honest, when I see them, it just lifts me. It just lifts me. It gets me to my higher version of myself. That's the reason why we have these pictures in our homes. So the Chofetz Chaim, I'll finish off with the story and then let you go to your Psalms and charity. And the Chofetz Chaim wrote one of his books. He contracted with the yeshiva student to copy the manuscript for publication and set a price per page of 20 lines each. In reviewing the copy, the Chofetz Chaim found a number of pages with 22 lines. So he hurried to the student's home and insisted on calculating how much additional money he owed for the extra lines. Who does that? But God forbid to owe somebody money and then die and get to the next world, finding out you still owe someone money. The tzaddik, the chassid, would always make sure he paid his debts. He wouldn't owe anyone anything. As soon as you owe someone something, you've got to pay it immediately. God forbid before you forget. By the way, there are many stories of reincarnation where people come back specifically because they owe someone money, or they borrowed a CD, they borrowed someone's clothes, and they never paid it back. It's really not worth coming back for that reason, my friends, even if it's a really good CD. Finally, prior to selling his books, the Chofetz Chaim would meticulously examine each one to make sure there was no missing pages. Again, can you imagine? Because the Chofetz Chaim was so scared people were buying his books. What happens if he now owes them because the book was a little bit damaged or there was a page missing? That means he would owe them for eternity, and the Chofetz Chaim was petrified of that. Some people today have copies of his books with corrections with his own handwriting because he heard there was a mistake, so he came round to their house. The Chofetz Chaim, that great sage in the middle, would come to their house and let me fix it for you. For him to spend so much time leafing through every single book indicates that he considered the avoidance of possible, inadvertently selling defective merchandise is the most important thing. And again, we're living in such a sad generation where people stuff can sell you dodgy goods. They'll specifically sell you things which don't really work. They'll sell you a car which has got problems. They'll sell you a house which is malfunctioning and has got damp in. You know, we're living in a generation where we hide the faults. What the tzaddikim would do is they were so worried that maybe there could be a fault, and they would be so open and honest and genuine and do everything they can to fix that. So it's just showing you how we need to live and how we shouldn't live. In short, basically, you want to be holy, be nice. To quote some great pop singer now, apparently made a song called Be Nice. So I think Natalie knows the song. Will.i.am, be nice, right? So everyone be nice, and wishing you a very happy Hanukkah, everybody. Please join me on Wednesday night. We've got an awesome, amazing guest speaker. It's about time we had a woman speaking. So we've got a very holy woman speaking on the law of attraction according to Kabbalah. It's kind of mind-blowing. So really join me at 7 p.m. UK time, 9 p.m. Israel time. I bless you all. So you should, please God, see that 8th day of Hanukkah should be a day of incredible miracles for all of you. I really recommend you say Psalm 91 and 119 if you can. Give some charity, make prayers, the things you want, and please God, Hashem will answer all your tefillot, the tovah.